There we go. Okay. So hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Good afternoon, and everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules. And, as a busy CEO myself, I know how valuable time is, and I really appreciate you spending some of it here with us this afternoon. Time is a resource that we can't make any more of. And that's why this session isn't about piling more on your plate. It's about showing you how AI can actually take weight off of it, giving you back the time to lead instead of taking those things that you really get buried down in the day-to-day of everything that you do. Well, if you haven't had time to meet me yet, my name is Barrett Ernie. I'm the CEO of Ernie IT. And beyond just the title, I wear the same hats many of you do, managing growth, leading people, and trying to stay ahead without losing sight of what really matters most in business. Like many of you, I've wrestled with how to balance strategy with the flood of daily demands. And that's why I'm so passionate about this conversation, because I've really seen firsthand how AI can help leaders reclaim focus and energy. Joining me today is Alec. Alec, you want to tell our group a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Alec Langban. I've been with Ernie IT and working with Barrett for about coming up on 8 years now. Started as an intern, and now I'm acting as our service manager. Deal with clients pretty much every day, whether that's onboarding, account management, and even some tickets. But the biggest thing I've got to say though about all of this AI things is we've talked so many times, Barrett, about how we want a clone of ourselves, right? And that would be amazing if we could figure that out. But AI can really be an extension of ourselves and make us, if after this meeting, maybe 5, 10% better. But as we keep using it more and more, even more efficient. So that's what I'm excited about talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of go to our next slide. So kind of give you an overview, everyone, of what we're going to be looking at. And just a quick high level, we're Ernie IT. Yeah, we've been in business since the year 2000. We're experts in managed IT, cybersecurity. We're excited and passionate to serve our local community, helping provide customer service that is above and beyond what you're going to find in the local market. Just a little pitch about our company. We really love working with our clients, and some of you are here on the call with us today, and maybe you've experienced that yourself. But um, honestly, we're just passionate about what we do. But we really want to talk about what we're doing today. So today's focus, we're going to talk about the right AI strategy and how it's going to free you to focus on leading, not just managing the workload of what you're doing. And I want to make one thing clear today too. We're going to be going through a lot of information, and Alec and I, we're tech guys, right? That's how I got my start. That's Alec's background. We're both very technical, but we've worked really hard. And when we were talking about this, we said, for the individuals that are joining us today, we want to give you practical information. And if you're a CEO, you're a business owner, you really want to see how AI is going to fit into your daily workload. So while we're going to have some practical things that you can do, we're going to keep this pretty straightforward. We're not going to get super into the weeds, and we're going to avoid a lot of technical jargon. And at the end of this, you're going to kind of come away with a playbook that you can use that will help you as a CEO. And we're not going to get all into the weeds of a lot of technical jargon that sometimes tech people tend to do. But back to what we're focusing on today, we're going to identify areas where AI can save time without adding additional team members or staff, learning the questions to ask that can lead to smarter AI use, so using it more effective, and then seeing some real world examples that you can immediately implement. We're going to actually walk through a couple demos there, and we'll show you exactly what to do. And then there's 5 questions that we're going to dig into, and Alec and I are going to kind of have a back and forth here. So these 5 AI questions every CEO should ask to scale their business. Now, if you look at these as an overall view of any business, this is kind of what you need in any business to scale and build it out, right? Um, and just a real quick housekeeping reminder too. Today's session is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back and rewatch it. If you have other team members that may benefit from it, feel free to forward and send it to them. We've got Crystal, our marketing coordinator. She's on the call here. You've seen her. She's monitoring the chat box. So please, at any point in time, if you have questions, post them in the Q&A. We're going to have a section at the end of our discussion today where we'll be able to answer those questions and have a little bit of discussion. And then at the end, we also have our giveaway, and we'll have that playbook that you'll get as well too at the end of this. So make sure you post everything there in the Q&A. But let's get back to these 5 questions. So you've got marketing, or 5 core components of any business. You've got marketing, operations, admin, legal, human resources, and leadership. And they kind of encompass what we felt were the core components of most business, operations and fundamentals, and things that we thought would help any CEO, to be more effective and more efficient. So Alec and I are going to go back and forth, but first, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about marketing. And the question there is AI being used to better understand customers' needs and challenges. So the real question for us is, how do we do that? Well, the first take on this, I would say, is with marketing. How do we better understand our customers or our clients? How are we able to get better information? And I think about it this way. If I went back a few years and I wanted to understand, say, the demographics of the Wilmington market or our target audience, it would require some really expensive software solutions or some very time-intensive research material, or just a lot of my time to go and do a lot of research to figure out what the market tells us about our clients. Now, some of you would say, yeah, or a lot of experience. Well, that too, but now we're able to use AI to get some customer insights really at scale. Well, what do I mean by that? Now, later we're going to have a demo and you'll be able to see, we'll take a target industry, we'll be able to pull some metrics and kind of bring all of that together with some really smart prompting. But for example, if you're in one industry and you want to see your particular customer type, or even potentially look at what your competitors are doing in a market, you can now use AI to kind of supercharge that. Think about it this way. In the old days, you would have to go do this research that I mentioned before. Say, look at competitors' websites, see what they're doing, make phone calls, use this expensive software to do research. Now with deep insight and AI, you can go out and pull material from the local market and then make smart decisions about where you would want to target your marketing material and resources. And one of the beautiful things about that is, there's great media companies here in Wilmington. Maybe you work with the Wilmington Business Journal or Wilmington Media or Eagle Eye Marketing, or there's a whole number of different sign companies that I think of, like Wilmington Sign. And so you've got money, but it's limited resources. And you're like, where do you want to target it? So you can actually use marketing with AI and build a plan and now scale it all together and actually take what could have been a lot of work, make a plan, and as a CEO or even just a small business owner, have something that you can work against and have a step-by-step plan that you can implement with a budget and a direction for your organization. And that really can lead into sales output that maybe you wouldn't have been able to achieve before. And I just mentioned sales. So I kind of, Alec, I got to ping you on this because you're really overseeing our sales component of this. What are you seeing on the sales side when it comes to the use of AI?
Well, a lot of similar things to the marketing. If you're starting to do all this marketing, you're sending out different AI generated material that really helped you streamline those processes, right? And you're really hitting that target market. Well, eventually you're going to get some leads in. And now the goal is to go through sales and close those deals. And the thing is as a small business, everybody is so busy day to day. I could get busy in account management. I could get busy in a simple ticket, being in IT. But AI is really going to help you to spend the time on every different sales opportunity you have and really get into the weeds and the details. For example, maybe what a competitor that maybe that client is currently, that prospect's currently using, uses. And maybe you can go onto their website and really do a comparison through an AI tool and say, hey, please compare our website to theirs and say what maybe we might be better at, or help me be ready for some things that maybe we're not as good at, so that you don't get stumbled by these questions in the sales meetings. Really, it's being prepared and coming in. And again, back to the preparation, we all have maybe a proposal that we build out or a statement of work. And sometimes we want to build a beautiful proposal, but it just the time isn't there. And we more than likely we want to get out the proposal quick rather than spending a week or 2 weeks waiting, making that prospect wait for the proposal and making it perfect. But in 2025, with the AI tools we have in our hands, we really should be able to build out a 98% beautiful proposal within an hour, maybe even less if you have it dialed in. And then you can get the prospects the material they deserve at the quality that you want them to in 10% of the time it might have taken you in the past.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing from you is, if you're in a sales position and say you were even one of our competitors, you've really got no excuse waiting several days to get back to a client on, a proposal or building something out. Like the days of waiting a week are long gone. Like that's not going to happen anymore.
It should be for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something else I was thinking about with marketing that really we have seen AI help turbocharge is content generation. And we may think it's fun to generate the funny things like today on our door we have a recording in session thing to let the rest of the team know not to burst in or have fun while we're doing this. But I think about that because now we can generate content for media much quicker if we want to do something like this webinar, just like the graphics that Crystal was able to work hard to put together. Now she's able to do it in a much faster, cleaner, and tweak it and make it more appropriate for what we're doing. As well as content, we can tailor it to specific individuals. So I really feel like, we're now able to supercharge our marketing and focus it much more than we ever were able to by using AI. And again, we're going to get into a couple examples a little bit later on in our presentation that we'll be able to see firsthand. But let's jump into operations now. And Alec, in Ernie IT, that's your forte. You're living it, you're breathing it every single day. So let's talk a little bit about ops and how you can use AI to benefit in the operations world.
Yeah, the question under the operations picture we have on screen, what repeatable processes could be automated to free up time for higher value work? That's a very vague, big question. Repeatable processes, there's repeatable things every day in every business, and it's trying to free up that time. And we were talking, Barrett, and we're on a big kick here at Earning IT about standard operating procedures and really documenting our work so that our clients get the same level of work no matter who they talk to. And just making processes, making a knowledge base article or making hey, this is what we do every time this thing happens is a repeatable process. It's a repeatable thing we do all the time. And now we can build out templated processes and procedures based on one maybe that we spend a really long time on, give it to an AI system and say, hey, help me to build more processes in this exact same template. And then now we can do it in 10% of the time. Another thing we talked about, Barrett, was in our accountability group that I'm a part of with different service managers at different MSPs. And there was a larger organization, MSP, about IT provider, about 50 employees. And their service manager actually did a survey of their technicians and said, how many people here are using AI day to day, or at least weekly? And 10% of their technicians said they were using it. Not 10% said they weren't using it. Only 10% said they were actually using it to troubleshoot day to day. And what's a repeatable process? Well, a repeatable process for us is tickets. We get tickets all the time. And we have to actually, as leaders in our organization, me and you, Barrett, we have to keep telling the guys, hey, remember you have these tools at your disposal. So we're going to dig in. One of the things we're going to dig into an actual show of screen shares marketing, but we're also going to do one on operations on making a process out of using ChatGPT or Copilot, whatever you decide, and how to prompt it to really give you back something that you can use in a standard process you might use. And this one, we're going to, an onboarding template or something like that, similar for a local small business here in Wilmington, as an example. So I look forward to getting into that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think any opportunity that you have to, increase efficiency in your team like that, it's not just a better opportunity like what we've experienced here, where we can improve and continue to improve our customer service and maintain those high standards. But then it also means, for any organization that's on this call, you're going to increase your efficiency, which means you know your ability to scale and continue to hire and grow. It's like, all right, all of a sudden you're that much more efficient. Maybe you don't have to hire as fast. Maybe you can redirect resources. It's going to make you better as an organization if you can be that much more efficient. So there's a lot that can come from that on the operations side, you know, if used effectively. And so it's
Yeah.
really about reclaiming a lot of time too.
Reclaiming for sure, and there's some fancy tools out there, right? There
Yeah.
we've heard of AI agents, and we've heard of all these different new things that are coming out. But really, in this webinar today, and with these 5 different areas and the examples we're going to talk about, we're only really talking about just a simple chat bot, right? With a chat GPT or a Copilot, and a lot of free models out there. So there's really no excuse. It's not a big onboarding hassle, and it's really just getting in there and not being afraid to mess around.
Love it. That's great. So let's move on and talk a little bit now about one of the ones that I have really been spending a lot of time on. You know this about me, like it has been a huge kick of mine that like I shouldn't be this excited about administrative and legal components. And you know, Alec, I know you're going to remind me if I don't say this now, but I will say that it is not a, you know, using AI to put together information from a legal side of things is it's not a replacement for an attorney. So just, and I know you
Yeah.
have some thoughts on that too. We'll talk about it a little bit as we summarize everything. But I just have to say one of the biggest things, you know, as a CEO is the amount of time that I used to have to spend looking over contracts, which would help shape strategy. And that's internal to any organization. So right now, you can think about, regardless of what kind of company you are, you have some form of contract, right? You have engagements, you have contracts. It doesn't matter. You statements of work, whatever it is. Now, one of the most powerful things that I've been able to do recently, I'm like, this is awesome, is to use AI to analyze those contracts and look at it from the perspective of both myself as the CEO, maybe take an attorney's perspective and analyze it from that angle, but also look at it from the customer's perspective and make sure that we're not taking too much of a harsh approach so that we are still providing the right customer service angle, or we're not taking, you know, sometimes these things become too one-sided. And so it's taking contracts, reviewing them. You know, some of these things are 80 pages long, you know, and it's like have AI summarize it, give me an overview of what's in there, and then have it give me that approach. So now I'm so much better informed and able to make a decision. A lot of times there's not much you can change in some of these contracts, you know, the boilerplate software or membership forms or those things. But at the end of the day, I'm now much more able to kind of look at the big picture and go, okay, I now have an understanding of what I'm signing without having to spend hours reading through it. And I can see directly, you know, where the particular provisions or components of the contract are in the contract. So if I want to read more, I can cross-reference it and go back. The other part of that is, you know, when contracts change year to year or you're renewing, you can do a contract comparison and see what things have changed. So that's been a huge advantage. Of course, there's all kinds of personal benefits you can certainly see, not just within an organization, but you know, personally as well. There's many contracts you would sign in your personal life. So both from a financial perspective, reviewing things and trying to get it from that angle, I see that as a huge benefit. And then, you know, kind of putting all that information together into a summary for me, you know, to have kind of all the bullet points has been really helpful. I think that's one of the most powerful tools, at least from a time saving perspective. I think that's been really helpful. And I wouldn't have expected to be this excited over something that seems so mundane when you think about administrative and legal components. But you can now put together a lot of information. And when I do go to my attorney, I am now so much better prepared and I can use my time and my resources much more effectively. So I'm not just burning money or burning their time, burning my time. It's almost like a power tool. I can go in, kind of build it out. I'm not the expert, I'm not a legal expert, but at least now I have the framework sort of built out ahead of time. It's been really
Yeah.
helpful for me.
No, it has, and it's good that you're in that seat because, yeah, reviewing that stuff for me, makes me want to pull my hair out. Of course, AI makes it a lot simpler and easier and more efficient. But you'd mentioned looking at AI prompts from a different perspective, and I think that's interesting because you're right. You, of course, are going to look at these different contracts, right, and say, for your business, and you're going to say, what should I be worried about as somebody who's going to sign this contract, or what are the renewal terms or things like that you want to get points out of a huge 80-page document. But for me on the sales side, I really like kind of like what you mentioned, saying, hey, I'm sending this contract over to a client. What
Hmm.
if take the perspective of our client and tell me what it is that maybe they would see as a red flag? Because of
Right.
course we're all in business, we're small business, we want to protect ourselves, but we don't want to put our clients that we care about so much in sticky situations. So that for me has been a big tool when I'm doing these sales processes. I think that's
Yeah.
been beneficial. But jumping into like the different, you talk contracts, but that's pretty similar to contracts. Talk a little bit about the next point, human resources, and the specific thing that came to my mind. We try to harp, with us, all of our clients a lot is having policies in place, of course, for IT because that's our industry, but really
Yeah.
policies, handbooks in place, and those things, if you want to do them custom, they might cost you a fortune to do through an attorney. If you want to, buy a template, sure, then you can buy a template, but it's not as custom as you might like. So talk a little bit about the HR and policy stuff.
Yeah, and I just think how, AI has really turbocharged the ability to put together policies that fit the culture within your organization. I'll give you an example. At Ernie Accountants and Advisors, it took a very long time to build out a handbook and information and condense it down from all these industry standards. And it's a lot of work and a lot of thought that goes into a very small policy change that could have repercussions for a whole organization. And so now when we're looking at making changes, for Ernie IT and we're building out policies, we can take the cultural perspective. And just like we're talking about our customers and our clients, we can now look at our team members and our employees and we can approach it from the same angle and we can say, okay, what are the implications of this policy change, and then what compliance issues could we potentially run into? And we can formulate, and again, I will say this is not a replacement for an attorney. You want to make sure that these things are vetted, and you're abiding by state and federal rules and guidelines. But now you can create a framework and build out and get everything in the right context, and you can do 85% of what you need ahead of time and have it all handbooked out, built out, searched, and develop a culture that is appropriate to the organization that you want to build, which is so awesome because the amount of time and energy that you would have had to spend previously doing this would have taken, hours upon hours and meetings, and you would have picked it up and put it back down and it would have been a real challenge. But now you can almost generate templates and then work through it and progress much quicker. So I really feel like it's been extremely helpful. It ties back into administrative and legal. And kind of to go into the next point of the HR piece of this is job descriptions, hiring, helping move through candidates faster and find the right person to fit your culture within an organization. Alec, you and I have talked about like our job descriptions and making sure they align with like industry practices here within the organization. And it's like we want to hire really good people that are really smart, but also we have to be fair. Like we don't want to throw the whole kitchen sink at them, right? So we want to make sure that we're pulling in all the right information. And in the old days, you'd have to build out all this stuff, and it was complicated. There's all different resource guides you have to go to. And I think now we can do deep research with AI, pull it all together, match it up against what we find online, and
Mhm.
it takes us so much less time than just even a couple years ago what we would have had to spend. So I think it's
Yeah.
a it's a great
Talk about
resource.
I agree. It's 100%. You talked about, finding a job posting, but talk about how, for us, for example, we sent out a new technician job posting, and
Yeah.
we got a lot of responses, right? It was overwhelming. And you'll probably hear me say the word overwhelming a bunch during this thing because I feel like AI is a huge thing that can take away from overwhelm. but getting 2, 3, 400, job results back of people that are putting in their applications can be overwhelming to go through every one of them. But again, that's somewhere where AI can really help you to go through these different lists and find what might be very specific to you. MSP experience for us, IT experience, and help desk experience is, of course, very
Right.
important.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on the key points is you're going to have very key, parts of a resume, and it is very hard, to read through hundreds and hundreds of them. Like you're kind of pre-sorting and filtering and I think, as a smaller organization, we can't afford a full-time HR person that does this for us, and we've got an amazing person at the firm that's able to do it, and she spends, a lot of time, and she has a special skill set that does that. And I think AI can replace part of that, but not completely do it, but it helps in speeding up that process for us.
Yeah.
So, for example, looking at keywords, going through the resumes, helping to find like those top 10 or 20, and then our eyes can be on that and help kind of filter through it has really saved us a lot of time. And then we get to the right candidates faster and are able to focus our time and energy on the ones that, are far more meaningful and are going to be, more impactful for the organization. So I think that's a huge help. I wouldn't have expected it to be able, and I think broadly it goes back to the administrative part of this too, the review work of being able to scan information, whether it's in PDF or Word format or Excel, and analyze it and give us some output, not necessarily output that is, perfect from the data set side, like exact numbers, but at least to be able to give you sort of an overview that helps you make better decisions. I think that's where it's really powerful.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, let's look at this last core component here, this pillar of leadership. And I think, leadership is something that encompasses an organization. It's not just about, the people who are leading, the CEO in the organization. It's about every individual. And I think it really is important culturally. You've heard me mention a few times, the culture of an organization and using, different ways to make sure that you're aligning the culture within an organization. So I think there's so many different ways that AI can help in that component. And I think I'm going to start out with just efficiency. Nobody really loves having a ton of meetings, like meeting after meeting after meeting. So if you can minimize the number of meetings and make things more efficient, so, executive summaries, using AI to condense notes and to have follow-up. We use Teams, so using the AI component built into Teams to summarize. If I don't have to be in a meeting, I don't want to be in a meeting, right? And to have a summary or tasks or follow-up is really nice to know, hey, what are the things I need to do or need to remember to do? It can help with that. I also really like where there's, certain components and KPIs that help from a leadership perspective, where I can pull in data and analyze it and use it against industry metrics. Sort of like on the marketing side, you used to have to go out and pull all kinds of numbers in from, all the marketing experts. It's kind of the same thing from a leadership perspective. You would have to go out to all the industry leaders, pull in all this data, do an analysis, figure out all the benchmarks. Now it's much easier for me sitting in my seat to go, okay, what are the standards? What are the benchmarks I need to look at, or KPIs? And let's use AI to kind of pull it all together and then help me build out those KPIs and metrics. We do that within our organization. It's like, okay, for this person in this role, in this seat, what are some good metrics that they can be judged by? And then as a leader, how do I hold them accountable? And asking AI to help me come up with either questions or things I can do, in our one-on-ones or our meetings that can help, accelerate education or training or whatever it is, can be extremely beneficial. So there's a lot of different ways. I think you have to be creative at times, but we found it really beneficial from that, and it kind of filters into all the other areas, that we've talked about.
Yeah, and it's a good general overview of how to use it in leadership. But a big thing in leadership is the leader. We don't want to take away and say that these AI tools, you can get really in depth with some really cool stuff out there. But you don't want to automate things where, for example, maybe you've been doing one-on-ones, and now you're going to automate it with a templated thing that goes out to every person in your organization, and they do it via template. that AI automate. No, but we're talking about a leader sitting down with that one-on-one and having AI as a tool next to them that helps them remember things that have been talked about and goals and what's really important to these different people and what's going on and how can you almost become like a super leader when you have this by your side and you make sure that, hey, can I use it right now? Yes. Okay, this will help me in the future.
Yeah, that I love that point because this whole session, we've talked about efficiency, freeing up time. And as a CEO, if you're sitting in that seat, the most important thing I feel that you could be doing is spending time with your people. You're talking to them, having one-on-ones, doing those things. And it's really hard when you're trying to figure out all this other stuff. And if you get bogged down, then it becomes really difficult. So if you can use AI, and that's been my experience to kind of, power through a lot of it, that frees you up. It frees you up to spend more time with your family, frees you up to spend more time with your team members, employees, figure out what's going on with them. And at the end of the day, that's going to make your organization far more successful and far more productive. And that's what we want, right? As leaders, people who are running companies. And that really, to be honest, it doesn't matter if you have 50 or 100 people in your organization, or it's just you or one other person. It could be a huge, huge benefit, to help you out. All right, let's pull this up here. Those were the kind of 5 main points, but we've got a couple practical things. And if you guys see the screen, this is a practical use scenario for marketing. And what this is, we're going to be using ChatGPT. You're going to have to bear with me because I'm actually going to share my screen. And the step 1 here is, you'll notice in quotes, we're going to identify a target market. And what I've done is I've picked a commercial construction company. So you'll see the blank. You can put in any company, could be your company. And we're going to fill in this prompt and just throw it in. Now I'm using the free version of ChatGPT. You may have a paid version. You may use Copilot. This will work just as well. And then it's gonna give us a bunch of information. So let me share out my screen
while you're
here.
sharing, Barrett.
Yeah.
I just want to ask real quick. Is this going to be in the guide that we're giving out at the end?
It is. You'll have all this information. You'll be able to look at it and insert your own information as well. So absolutely. Cool. All right. So sharing out my screen here for you. You'll notice I am a commercial construction company based in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm going to submit this prompt. And it's gonna spit out a bunch of information here for you. Again, as Crystal says, don't worry about copying it here. You'll get it in the resource guide. And it gives us a ton of information, right? All kinds of strategic opportunities as a construction company that's focused on commercial, things that may be an issue within your market, all kinds of customer types, key information, and then some final core components. But Alec, you've mentioned it several times. You talk about how this is a lot. This is a lot of information. It may be kind of overwhelming. So what are we going to do with all of this information? Well, the next thing that we need to do, I'm going to stop sharing here for just a moment. We're going to go to our next slide. And we're going to take this next prompt here. You'll notice it's step 2. And we're going to take this prompt. I'm going to copy it, and we're going to actually get our own action plan off of all this information. So, and you'll be able to do the exact same thing. We'll give you a sort of a real-time spit out here. And one of the greatest things is to get all that information, but then it's like, I kind of need a plan. Like if I'm going to develop, get all this information about my market and everything I'm doing, give me something to work off of, right? So let's share my screen again. I've copied the prompt down at the bottom here.
I'm going to interrupt 2 seconds.
Yes.
Can you make your screen any larger by chance?
Any larger?
Zoom in on your browser.
How's that?
There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
You got it. All right. Thanks, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to submit this prompt here. Hopefully you guys can see that.
I love, chat taking his time, right, while we're on a webinar. That's
right.
That's how it works.
In our dress rehearsal, it went pretty instantaneous. So All right. So now what do we have? Well, we've got an entire 30 to 60 day game plan with everything we possibly need spitting out, right? And the concept here is just to give you an overview of the fact that you're going to get a lot of information out of some of these prompts, right? And you can customize it. The more information you give in that initial prompt, the more output you'll get. But then what you can do is take this, like we said initially, and work off of it. So like if you're just a few people, you could now have an action plan and decide, okay, I have only so much money that I can spend. Maybe tell it that, right? And now it's going to help you target that ad spend, be able to, focus, hey, I'm going to take X amount, I'm going to send it over to the business journal. I'm going to do this and I'm going to develop some of this myself. My internal team will be able to focus. And, as a CEO, now you have a very clear direction. You have an opportunity to have an agenda and a plan. Go back a few years in time, think how much energy it would have taken to develop a fully flushed out marketing plan. There's no way that you'd have spent the time and energy. I mean, maybe you would have, but I wouldn't have. There's no chance. But now you can develop this. You've got step-by-step plans and sort of a whole blueprint. This is just a guide and an opportunity to give you an example of what it's capable of that will help you out. There's other companies here that would help you take this plan. You think of like an Eagle Eye Marketing or somewhere where they could say, okay, you've got X amount. Let's use this and work with it. Go to all your vendors. And so lots of opportunities here to help keep you on track and focused. But we just wanted to share with you this one. Now, Alec, let's talk a little bit about ops again. You've got one for us too. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint here so you all can see the prompt. But like Barrett was mentioning, let's talk a little bit about operations and how we can try and streamline a process, a procedure, a project, an onboarding, an offboarding, whatever this might look like. And again, prompt is going to be in the guide, so no reason or no need to, you can take screenshots, whatever you'd like to do. But this is the prompt we're going to look at. And in my scenario here, I have made our local Wilmington-based business a flower arrangement company, building flower arrangements for different events. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll see how well it acts. And just to give everybody a heads up on this, and I'll zoom in just like Barrett did, everybody heads up on this, this prompt's a little different. So rather than asking it for a lot of information, in this case, we're actually asking ChatGPT in this specific scenario, what questions does it have for us that we can answer so that ChatGPT can give us the best response possible? So that's another tip and trick. If you take something out of this, that's the goal, take 1 or 2 tips and tricks out of this. Ask ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever you're using, what questions can it ask you and responses you can give to make something better. So here's our 3 important questions that it's asked us. What type of events do you primarily serve? How do clients currently contact and book you? And do you currently use any tools or software? So I'm going to start responding to some of these, but you can see it's pretty beneficial. We do weddings and corporate events.
Alec, are you planning on this being a side hustle?
Yes, this is, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, very lucrative.
Sounds like a great one. Yeah.
Word of mouth so far, and a bit of email and website. And we are using no tools because I am doing the side hustle and starting it up fresh on the side of Ernie IT.
Nice.
All right, so we've answered, let's stay logged out. We've answered our prompt that it asked us, and now we're getting an action plan out of here of what we can do about a process, for example, to onboard or go through the process of interviewing new clients that we have about the event, about the wedding or the corporate event or strategy they're having. And we're even able to, it gives us advice on creating a Google form that they're able to fill in all the details. Now, what I wanted to mention too, kind of similar to Barrett's, was you might look at this and say, okay, this is even a day-by-day breakout of how to accomplish this in a few days. And we're going to stop what it's responding right now because it's really great. But again, to try and take all this information in might, again, still feel overwhelming. A Google form, building an intake form, maybe through Microsoft Forms also. How do you do that? Well, ask it. Tell me how to do day 1, step 2 with the intake form in more detail. I am a little overwhelmed. So you can see how using AI and really taking something that feels out of your comfort zone and that would take you much longer, well, now it's really going to break it down and say, okay, let's figure out what we're doing for this client intake form. Decide what you want to do. Now it's time to gives you even a link to go to the Google Forms and how to build it. So again, just examples. This is all going to be available to you, but the more you can prompt these different tools with and ask how things can how it can answer you better, and then dig into each and every step more and more you're gonna get more benefit and efficiency out of it.
Yeah, I think that's great. It really is. And I think, I feel like our buzzword in many ways for this session is on a lot of levels efficiency. And I feel like, any opportunity you can do to drive that, it gives you back that time that we're so desperately needing, and it can be so helpful for us. So as we're kind of going through this, it's important that we talk about some boundaries, and I feel like, they are there with AI, right? So probably the first one, I'll just maybe Alec, you and I'll take turns on this, but
Yeah.
and then may address a few of the questions, but no unchecked legal, never use AI to create legal HR compliance documents without professional review. We got to put that disclaimer in there. I say that, it is absolutely the case, even with some of the advancements, it's just use a good attorney. There's a reason they exist. We're not there yet. We'll end it on that. Let's use it to get the framework in place, but don't use this as a legal expert from that perspective. It's not there yet.
For sure. And as an IT company, we definitely have to bring this out, right? Protect your data. If you're a medical organization or you're an attorney and you have, confidential things that you're working with, you don't want to be putting them into ChatGPT, those confidential, personal health information, whatever it might be, credit card numbers, social security numbers, those types of things. ChatGPT uses itself to train and to continue to make itself better. And it'll use the data you give it in other scenarios that it gets put through. And maybe your data might come out, maybe it won't. But we recommend all of our clients, hey, if you want something a lot fancier and a lot cooler that privatizes all your data, come talk to us. And anyone on this call, feel free to reach out to us about some solutions like that if you'd like. But with these general tools like ChatGPT and free versions of Copilot that are just able to access on the web, be careful with the data that you're putting on there. You don't want it falling in the wrong hands.
Yeah, and the outcome too of that data that's in there, the data you are feeding it, make sure that there's accurate, you're double checking accuracy. Yes, deep research is important. When you do that, it gives you the references, but double check it. Don't assume AI output is accurate. Always fact check the results. I have definitely had some bad outputs when, I've done some data analysis and I'm like, these numbers seem a little off, and yeah, they were a little off. So make sure, you're not solely relying on it, double check the numbers, but use it as just a general guide to kind of help send you in a direction. I think that's the most valuable tool.
Great. Yeah, no, I agree. And our next point here, keep it personal. You are who you are. We all have our different types of how we write emails, how we are on the phone. Sometimes, I'm sure how I handle a ticket in our business is going to be different than how some of our technicians would. We all have our style, and we don't want to get that misplaced in AI. If we're getting AIs to fully write our emails for us, yes, of course, it can edit it for us. It can give us a template, just like the same thing with Attorney. But the special things about us and our business are us. That's who makes us special and gets the clients. It's similar to the last point, which we'll just re-hit on again in a sec.
Yeah, and I really like this one point here too with, avoiding overcomplication. I have done this make sure you don't fall in this trap. Don't waste time by turning easy work into a drawn out AI process. And we're not talking about like complicated connecting systems and all that, but like how many of you have gone down a rabbit hole of like you're spending all this time trying to do this thing or develop this thing, and it's like, why did you even do that in the first place? AI is really good at, rabbit holing with time. Like, just so be careful with that. The whole goal here is to, create efficiency, get you your time back. Don't waste time on something you don't need to be spending time on.
Yeah, know when to stop, right? No, I agree.
Yeah.
And then the last one, it hits again on the same point. Our small businesses, what makes our small businesses special is the people working in them. So if you have a message that you're trying to get out and you have core values, don't let AI cover up those things and the brand voice that you build. It can be a complement to it, but you don't want it to replace it. So just be on the lookout. It's similar to the keeping it personal point. It's something that you are what make you special and your company special.
Yeah, and I'll just add on that too, Alec. I think that's such a powerful point because it's, we tell our team, it's like, pick up the phone, call people, talk to people, have that human element, have that human connection. It's part of, what makes us who we are at Ernie IT. We want to be talking to people and communicating. AI isn't going to replace us. It's going to make us, more efficient, more better from the perspective of now we can have those human elements and opportunities to communicate with our clients and spend more time with them, and that's what we want. So yeah, I really like that last point. All right, so as we jump to the end of the session here, just want to mention, if you have any questions, we've got some in the session. Crystal has dropped the AI resource guide in the chat, so feel free to download that. We've got it in there. We've got a couple questions. We've got maybe 5-6 minutes here. I see a number of them in the chat, so maybe we'll pick the first one there. I was kind of scrolling through here. One, Dave was asking a little bit about how you incorporate AI into, a strategy within an organization and keep it, within the culture. And that's actually a really good question because it is a challenge. Some people are fearful of AI. And so, like Alec mentioned with his example of only 10% of a help desk team, at this larger organization. And I think I'll just say this as, from a leadership position, you kind of have to lead with the narrative, small steps, encourage it. Say, I heard it said that it was a force multiplier. It's not a replacer. And I think we hear a lot of stuff in the media and the news that, it's replacing all these people and all this. But, if you have a great team, you can help. I like the term power tool, and just try to encourage them to be better at what they do. And from a cultural perspective, say, hey, this is a tool that you can use, and we want to encourage you to get better at it, and it'll help develop their career from that perspective. So I think that's part of it, is it starts, at the top, and you start talking as from a leadership position about how you're going to use it and implement it. So
yeah.
Any thoughts, Alec, on that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. Get some prompts about asking to sign in for the resource guide. We'll make sure if you have any troubles there that we'll also email out a copy too, just to let you know on that front. All right. Let's see any other questions here.
Did you cover how do I create an AI ready culture where my employees embrace AI rather than feel fear of replacement? Or is that what you just covered?
Yeah, that was the one question.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and then Dave also asked about regulatory changes anticipate that should accelerate or limit AI-driven growth. The only one that I know of, there were some governmental policies that were put in place in the last 6 months that should accelerate some AI adoption. There was a lot of discussion about that. I think, the Trump administration had, some components that were passed that may speed it up. There's some discussion about what that will do to the overall industry, but the general consensus is it's going to accelerate it, not slow it down. Will there be more regulation in the future? That kind of remains to be seen. I know a lot of people are talking about it, so it'll be really interesting to see, sort of what happens in the longer term. I think a lot of people, big picture, long term, have their concerns, and I think we're going to see some regulation down the road. I think it's just the nature of what we're looking at.
Yeah, and also look at the industry you're currently in, right? If you're already having to deal with regulations and compliance, well, this still applies to new technology. You have compliance about encrypting your data if you're in HIPAA. Well, is the AI solution you're using and putting information in encrypted and private? If it's not, then you're still not HIPAA, compliant. You need to change your strategy. So looking at and asking your IT provider, hey, with our current compliance measures, do the tools that I'm using actually fit into those compliance measures, or am I breaking outside of those?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maggie asked a question here about thoughts on toggling back and forth between ChatGPT, DeepSeek to enhance the response. And I think, prompt toggling or using different, LMs to kind of get a different response and see what's out there. I think that's actually that's a great method. Trying to see, what's happening. I would even go as far as to say some of the older models, when you can switch back and forth when we had 4.0 of chat, now 5.0, different reasoning abilities, different responses, spending a little more time on it. I've also seen different, as Alec mentioned when he was going over some of the operation piece of this, different questions, having it, feeding it different information to get different responses, I think can be extremely beneficial. And then, yeah, sharing the responses back and forth to get a better response and to kind of feed it. The other part of that too, and you sort of, have seen it in some of the prompting, is having it act as a particular agent or particular individual. I think that can be really beneficial, and you'll see a better response that way. But hope that answers the question. Alec, you have any thoughts on that?
One thought, this is a beginner kind of course and webinar that we're having, right? So that's maybe more of an advanced tactic, but getting even more advanced, just the broad view is there's so many AI tools. ChatGPT and Copilot are great at a lot of things, but there's very specific tools for very specific industries. And prompting, as we talked about today, is very important. How do you prompt a system to get the best results possible out of it to get you the right information? And using one AI tool that's maybe very vague like ChatGPT to get the best prompt for something else that is really great at making processes and procedures or building images or insert whatever you'd like is really powerful, but a little bit more of an advanced move for sure.
Yeah, that definitely. I think that's a great point. All right, let's see. We got another question here coming up. What is this is social media is blowing up with AI employees, with repeatable processes being the topic question here. What are your thoughts on this? This has been a question that you have seen come up often. AI employees, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think about how, we have had some discussion about, can that potentially, are there repeatable processes that AI can replace or do within an organization? It kind of goes back to automation. I know there's a lot of discussion in the coding world about, how much of those particular jobs will be replaced by AI and how much coding can actually be done overall with AI. And I think that there's going to be a large part of that we're going to see, kind of go away. I think there's still going to need to be an understanding of it, and things that are highly repeatable. In other words, if you find yourself doing the exact same thing repetitively over and over and over again, AI is a really good tool to be able to, replace that process, right? And can help create efficiency from that, regard. Is it going to replace the entire employee? Well, if that's all you're doing all day long is that exact thing over and over again, then potentially, yes. But maybe that person is able to move on to something more productive or better within the organization. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, even within an existing company, to kind of look at some of the repeatable things. I hope that answers the question. I think, social media is kind of full of different approaches there. But Alec, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think we've all seen an uptick in clearly AI generated information on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Of course, LinkedIn's going to be very specific because it's business, right? That kind of goes back to our point is do not let AI tools take away your voice. You want your personality to come out first. You want who you are to come out first. You don't want to sound like, whoa, this guy, all of a sudden his grammar went up 10 steps, right? Just because now he's starting to use AI. You want to be yourself. So that's my opinion on it, is to, we want our own yourself to be out there. Use AI as a tool to try and get yourself out there, not be someone you're not.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to summarize it. Awesome. All right. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. You've got your free guide, access to the prompts that we used. Crystal, we have got to
Yes.
announce a winner. Can you do that for us?
Yes, I can. So our big winner for $50 gift card to Amazon is what we're giving away here on the line. If he is still here, Hunter Smoke. If you're here, Hunter, let me get a woohoo in the chat box. Just to make sure that you're that you stuck with us through the end. I think he's still here.
There you
There
go.
he is. Yeah.
All right,
So,
Hunter. Woohoo.
I have your email address, Hunter, so I will send that out to you here shortly. And for everyone else, I'll be sending the guide out as well here in just a few minutes once we wrap up everything.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you everyone for attending today. We greatly appreciate it. If you have any additional questions, our email addresses, barrett@ernieit.com, alec@ernieit.com. We've got our help desk number, 386-4444. Call anytime. Sales department, 398-6250. Of course, our website, ernieit.com. Visit us online there. And to all of our clients on the call, we enjoy working with you. To all of our future clients, we look forward to working with you. And anybody else, we're glad that you joined us today. And we'll see you again in the future.
Yeah,
I have to
thank
make
you.
I have to make a repeat of this. Sounds good, guys.
Yeah,
Thank y'all.
sounds great.
Thanks.